Hi everyone, we are from Group 3 Tutorial 4. The topic that we are going to present today is important managerial issues. These are our group members. We are in a group of 10. We have the first member, which is me, Alisha Hani, then following with Harish, Fu Yuanyi, Sabarina, Auni, Shuhaila, Shifa, Angeline, Lee Sin Tong, and also Zheng Li Ran. This is the overview of our whole presentation, which will cover two case applications. Moving on to the first case application, which is global control, global organization, global ethics, and social responsibility. I will now pass it to the first presenter.
Hello, my name is Harish Rao and my metric card number is 25073675. So the question is, how does this story illustrate a global village? So my slide explains how the CIB1001 story represents a global village. A global village simply means the world is super connected, countries rely on each other, and industry can't function without cross-border cooperation. And the EV battery industry is a perfect example of that. So yeah, EV battery supply chain is globally interconnected. The whole supply chain is spread across the world. Everything needed to make one battery comes from different countries, showing how connected the industry is. So next will be Congo provides key materials. For example, cobalt needed for EV batteries comes mainly from Congo in Africa. Moreover, China refines materials and manufactures battery. So those materials are then sent to China, where most of the refining and battery manufacturing takes place. Moving forward, Europe and US are main EV markets. After that, the finished batteries are sold to automakers in Europe and the United States, which are the biggest EV markets. So yeah, also CATL expands operations into Europe. CATL is also not just operating in China, they're expanding into Europe, like opening offices in Paris and setting up factories in Finland and Germany. And countries and companies rely on each other. This shows global collaboration. Automakers in Europe and the US depend on the Chinese batteries, while China relies on African countries for raw materials. Everyone plays a part. Finally, EV industry cannot function within one country alone. So overall, the EV industry is not local at all. The resources, the production, demand, and partnerships all happen across different parts of the world. That's why this case clearly reflects the concept of global village. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Alisha Hani, and today I will be explaining a question based on Exhibit 3-1. What approach is China's CATL using to go global and why? CATL, or also known as their full name, Contemporary Apparatus Technology Limited, is one of the world's largest EV battery manufacturers. You will find their batteries powering many electric vehicles. So let's look at how CATL managed to go global successfully. Based on Exhibit 3-1, how organizations go global, which I got it from the textbook, you can see that I have marked down which approaches are used by CATL. From minimal to significant global investment, CATL uses global sourcing, exporting, licensing, strategic alliances joint venture, and also foreign subsidiary. And to clarify, importing and franchising are not included because CATL does not use these methods. Now moving on to the next slide, according to Exhibit 3-1, one of the earliest stages of going global is global sourcing. CATL clearly uses this method. The company purchases lithium, nickel, and cobalt from different countries around the world. This reduces their dependence on a single supplier and ensures a stable supply of high-quality raw materials. By building a global supply chain network, CATL can support the huge demand of EV batteries internationally. The next step is exporting. CATL manufactures its batteries mainly in China, but sells them to globally automakers such as Tesla, BMW, Mercedes-Benz, and many other electric vehicles. Exporting helps CATL to reach foreign markets early without needing heavy investment overseas. This also built their reputation as a reliable global supplier. CATL also uses licensing, which is another method from Exhibit 3-1. Through licensing, CATL shares battery technology with international partners and allows foreign automakers to use CATL innovations. This reduces the need for CATL to build factories in every country while still expanding its global influence at a low cost. Next, CATL forms strategic alliances and joint ventures with global car manufacturers. They partner with companies like I had mentioned earlier, Tesla, BMW, and Mercedes-Benz on battery development. Through these alliances, CATL shares knowledge and resources, which helps them to enter the new market more smoothly and strengthen long-term relationship with foreign automakers. Finally, CATL uses the highest level of global involvement, which is foreign subsidiaries. The company is building factories in Germany, Hungary, and the United States. These investments show strong long-term commitment in foreign markets. It reduces the shipping time and helps CATL to comply with local regulations. Foreign subsidiaries show that CATL is moving into a deeper stages of international expansion. To conclude my part, these approaches help CATL to grow rapidly, strengthen its position in the EV battery market, and to maintain competitiveness worldwide. Now, I will explain the two approaches that CATL does not use, which are importing and franchising. Firstly, CATL does not use importing as an international approach. This is because importing does not help CATL enter the foreign markets. Importing is to bring foreign goods into China, which does not help CATL to enter the overseas markets. CATL is also a manufacturer, not a distributor. Their core business is producing batteries, not reselling products made elsewhere, so importing does not support their global expansion strategy. Besides, importing does not help CATL build customer relationships or market reach in other countries, since one of CATL's aim is to expand outwards outside of China, then importing simply does not align with their goals. Next, CATL does not use franchising because franchising is more suitable for standardized service businesses like restaurants or retail, but not for high-tech battery manufacturing. This is because battery production involves strict and high safety standards. Moreover, if CATL uses franchising, they risk of losing control over brand consistency. Because battery manufacturing requires high techniques and franchisees may not have the expertise to meet the same safety and engineering standards. This could lead to inconsistent product quality and potential damage to CATL's global reputation. Therefore, franchising is not a practical or safe approach for a technology-intensive company like CATL. That's all from me, and I will now pass it to the next presenter. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Furani. Today I'm presenting questions 13. What kind of MNC do you think CATL is? Explain your choice. CATL is the world's largest EV battery manufacturer, supplying global companies such as Tesla, BMW, Mercedes, and Hyundai. Because its operations are split across several countries like Europe, US, and Asia, we classify it as a multinational corporation. There are three main types of MNCs. First, multi-domestic corporations. These companies customize heavily for each country, such as different menus, different product designs, or different marketing styles. They operate very independently in each market, meaning subsidiaries have high autonomy. Common examples include McDonald's and Nestle, which often change flavors, packaging, or product formulas based on local taste. Second, global corporations. Global corporations see the entire world as one single integrated market. They produce standardized products worldwide, and decision-making is centralized at headquarters. Companies like Samsung or Apple fall into this category because they sell highly standardized technology products globally with minimal local variations. Third, transnational corporations. Transnational try to achieve both goals at the same time: global efficiency through standardized technologies and centralized R&D, and local responsiveness by adapting to regulations, local conditions, or customer needs. So now, let's analyze where CATL fits. Why CATL is not multi-domestic or pure global. CATL does not fit the multi-domestic model because battery chemistry cannot be culturally customized. Technology, safety standards, and performance must stay consistently globally. And CATL's core R&D is tightly controlled by its headquarters in China. However, CATL is also not a purely global corporation. Even though R&D is centralized, CATL still adapts to local environments. For example, it builds factories in Germany, Hungary, and the US to meet local regulations and subsidy requirements. It also hires local engineers, follow local sustainability rules, and adjusts battery specifications for different automakers in different regions. Because of these combinations, CATL cannot be classified as purely multi-domestic or purely global. Based on this analysis, CATL fits best under the transnational MNC category. It achieves global efficiency through centralized R&D in China and standardized battery platforms. At the same time, it shows local responsiveness by building factories in Europe and the US to meet political, regulatory, and customer requirements. CATL also collaborates closely with global automakers like Tesla, BMW, and Mercedes, modifying battery performance and interfaces for different vehicle platforms. In addition, CATL adapts its supply chains and product processes to local rules, such as environmental standards, sourcing requirements, and subsidy policies, so it can operate more effectively in each market. It also employs local engineering teams who provide feedback on regional needs, helping the company refine its product for different markets. The combinations of global integrations and local adaptation strongly matches the definitions of a transnational corporation. Therefore, CATL should be classified as a transnational MNC. And that's all from me. I'll pass it to the next presenter. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Managerial. My matrix number is 240000722. Today I'm going to discuss about question 314. How this dimension of national culture and group finding useful to CATL's management as it moves to Europe and eventually the United States. How this dimension and the group findings will help CATL's management understand and adapt to cultural differences as they expand globally. These frameworks guide how to manage employees, negotiate with partners, and build trust in different regions. They are like a world map of cultures that helps companies understand how people think, work, and act in different countries. Meaning, in every country is like a different family. Each family has its own rules, habits, and ways of talking. What's normal in one place might feel strange in another. Let's take a look at the first point, which is power distance. Who's the boss? China has a high power distance, meaning employees expect clear hierarchies and authority. As an example, in China, the boss is like a teacher. Everyone listens and respects them. However, in Europe and the US, power distance is lower. Employees prefer equality, open communications, and participations in decision making. To illustrate, in the US or Europe, the boss is more like a team captain, where people can talk freely and share ideas. CATL's leaders must adjust their management style to be more collaborative and transparent when operating in these markets. Second is individualism versus collectivism, team versus me. Chinese culture is more collectivist, emphasizing teamwork and group goals. Namely, in China, people work as a group. We win together. In contrast, Western cultures, especially the US, are highly individualistic, valuing personal achievements and independence. Such as in the US, people like to say, "I did this." CATLs will need to reward individual performance more explicitly and encourage personal accountability to align with local expectations. The third one is uncertainty avoidance, rules of freedom. Many European countries like Germany and Finland have high uncertainty avoidance. They prefer rules, detailed planning, and stability. To be clear, Europeans like clear rules and planning ahead. In China, people like clear structures and planning, but the reason is a bit different. Chinese companies usually follow the rules made by the boss, and workers expect clear instructions because of the high power distance. CATL should therefore emphasize clear policy safety standards and structure process when managing European operations. The US, on the other hand, is more open to risk-taking. They are okay with surprises and trying new things, so CATL can use more flexible and innovative strategies there. And the last one is long-term orientation. Think tomorrow or today. China scores high on long-term orientations, focusing on perseverance and future rewards. For instance, China loves to think long-term, let's build for the future, while Western countries, particularly US, lean towards short-term results and quick returns. To illustrate, the US wants quick results. Let's see success now. CATL's management must balance this value by maintaining its strategic long-term vision while demonstrating short-term success to investors and partners in the West. That's all from me. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Today I will be presenting question 315, which discusses the issue of cobalt mining in Congo and how it relates to social responsibility. First, let's look at the scenario. About 14% of world's cobalt comes from mining done by freelancers. working in unsafe and informal mining sites. Many US and European companies hesitate or are leery about buying from cobalt suppliers who get their materials from these cruisers. One major concern is that some of the miners are children. They rarely have safety equipment and they work in dangerous conditions that can cause serious injuries. From this scenario, we need to analyze whether the companies involved are practicing the classical view or the socio-economic view of social responsibility, and then identify the ethical issues involved. Now, moving on to part A, there are two main views of social responsibility. The classical view focuses only on profit. The main goal is to maximize economic performance without considering wider social consequences. On the other hand, the socio-economic view goes beyond profit. It emphasizes protecting social welfare, human rights, and environmental sustainability. So, which views are the companies practicing? The answer is that companies like CATL, who continue sourcing the cheapest cobalt possible from Congo, fall under the classical view of social responsibility. Their priority is reducing costs and maximizing profit without addressing the unethical mining conditions. Interestingly, even companies in the US and Europe, although they are more cautious or leery, still fall under the classical view. Why? Because simply being cautious does not mean they are taking real action to stop child labor and unsafe mining. They are not prioritizing human rights. To follow the socio-economic view, they would need to actively avoid unethical suppliers and take steps to improve working conditions. Next, for part B, let's discuss the ethical factors involved. According to the definition of corporate social responsibility or CSR, a business should obey the law, act ethically, and do what is good for society. However, in this scenario, several ethical issues appear. First, child labor, which violates basic human rights and labor standards. Number 2, dangerous working conditions. Workers lack safety equipment and face high risks. Number 3, conflict between profits and ethics. Companies prioritize low cost over safety. Number 4, choosing to ignore unsafe practices, which is considered an unethical decision. A company that truly follows the socio-economic view of social responsibility should take real action, not just be leery. For example, they should conduct strict supply chain audits. They should also investigate and monitor all cobalt suppliers. And then they also have to implement a clear supplier code of conduct and set and enforce standards that all suppliers must follow to protect human rights and workers' safety. These steps shows genuine CSR because the company is taking responsibility and action for the impact of its supply chain and not just focusing on profit. In conclusion, the scenario highlights the major gap between the classical and socio-economic views of social responsibility. Although many companies are aware of the issues in Congo's cobalt mines, awareness alone is not enough. True CSR requires action, ensuring that human rights, worker safety, and ethical standards are upheld throughout the supply chain. Thank you.
So now will be the conclusion. So the conclusion is the global EV battery industry is heavily interconnected. Like Congo supplies cobalt, China dominates processing and battery production, and Europe and the US are major markets, showing strong global independence. And CATL is aggressively expanding beyond China by building factories and offices in Europe, aiming to become world's top EV battery producer and to compete globally while navigating regulations and partnerships. Moving forward, CATL goes global by progressing through several stages from global sourcing and exporting to forming strategic alliances and establishing foreign subsidiaries. The approaches done by CATL allows them to expand their products worldwide while keeping its operation efficient and coordinated through centralized management and standardized technology. Next, CATL expands globally to meet rising EV battery demand and comply with different countries' sustainability and regulatory requirements. The case shows that CATL operates as transitional MNC by combining centralized R&D with local adaptation and its overseas factories. Also, CATL is expanding from China to Europe and the US, but each region has different work cultures. Hofstede and Globe study shows that Western employees prefer open communication and shared decision making. If CATL keeps using a strict top-down Chinese style, Western workers may feel unheard and less motivated. By understanding cultural differences, CATL can adjust its leadership style to fit Europe and the US. This helps the company avoid misunderstandings, build stronger teams, and succeed globally. Ultimately, the reliances on cobalt mined by children represents a widespread failure of social responsibility where the classical view of profit maximization has overshadowed the ethical duty to protect societal welfare. To be truly social responsible, companies must proactively eradicate these human rights abuses from their supply chains, aligning their practices with the socio-economic view that business success and social good are inseparable. So that's all from me. Thank you very much.
Hello everyone, my name is Shuhaila Alam and my matric number is 24217029. So today I will be talking about our case application number 2, that is serious about sustainability. So when we look at the ban posed by EU on buyers produced pesticides and whether there will be an influence in its use in other regions, the short answer is yes. Let me explain why. Firstly, as you all might know, that EU is stern when it comes to sustainability policies. So when they ban a product, it is definitely not a casual decision. Rather, it's an alarm for the world that the product is actually considered dangerous to the environment. Many countries across the globe sees European Union's environmental policies as a benchmark and try to follow similar guidelines. So when buyers' pesticides are banned in EU, they will be completely unable to sell locally, which will in turn affect their international markets because environmental groups and regulatory bodies in other countries may start pressurizing their farmers to stop its use as it has been prohibited by EU, one of whose members is Germany, which is where Bayer's global headquarters is based. However, the ban will not have similar results everywhere. For example, in countries where there are few to no alternatives to these pesticides and the regulations aren't as strict, farmers will have to rely on these for crop protection. On the long run though, Bayer will face adverse consequences as countries around the world are constantly updating their regulations on sustainability issues. Bayer will hence need to put in lots of hours to research and develop safer products and rebuild their trust with customers to remain profitable business in the industry. Thank you so much.
Hi everyone, my name is Shifa Salsabila. My matrix number is 2422745. So in this slide, the question is, have environmentalists overstated the dangers of Bayer's product to bees? The short answer is no. Environmentalists haven't overstated the dangers at all. From the case, we can see that the bee populations have been dropping a lot, and that alone is already a big problem. Why? Because bee helps pollinating so much of our food, so that if bees disappear, we have a huge issue with the crop production. There are also actual studies supporting it, like the one from the European Food Safety Authority that shows Bayer's neonicotinoids pesticide can really harm bees. So it's not just people guessing or exaggerating, but the science is also backs it up. And the EU even banned 3 of these pesticides, including one from Bayer. Government don't ban products just for fun, so that shows that the risk is something that they take seriously. Another thing is that These chemicals can spread into soils and plants, so even if farmers use them normally, they can still affect the bees indirectly. So in overall, based on the case, the environmentalist concern makes sense. Why? They're not just overreacting, but they're also pointing out the real dangers that could affect our environment and also the production of our food supply. That's all. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Angeline Teo, metric number 242-18132, and I'll be discussing whether Bayer is demonstrating socially responsible actions or not. First of all, I'll be talking about Bayer's compliance and transparency. Bayer has done several actions such as conducting rigorous testing on all products, following EU environmental safety standards, and sharing product test results publicly. As a global leader in pest control and crop science, Bayer has made efforts to act responsibly in its operations. The company ensures that all its products go through rigorous testing before entering the market, which shows its concern for human health and environmental safety. In addition, Bayer complies with the strict environmental safety standards set by the European Union, showing that it values regulatory compliance and product safety. By providing public access to taste data, Bayer has also shown transparency, which allows consumers, researchers, and regulators to evaluate its performance. Altogether, these actions reflect a strong attempt to build trust and demonstrate accountability to the society. However, despite all these positive efforts, there are several environmental controversies that arise, including pesticide-related bee deaths and the EU's 2018 ban, which raises doubts about Bayer's environmental responsibility. Despite Bayer's claim of responsibility, the issues of bee population decline linked to its neonicotinoid pesticides has caused serious environmental concern. Bees are important for pollination and food production, and their deaths create a major ecological risk. While Bayer insists that its pesticides are safe when used properly, scientific studies and the European Union's 2018 decision to ban this chemical suggest that the company's practices may not be fully aligned with the social responsibility. This controversy shows that Bayer's focus on regulatory compliance does not necessarily guarantee the protection of ecosystem or biodiversity. Overall, Bayer has demonstrated some aspects of social responsibility by complying with laws and increasing transparency. However, the environmental harms associated with its products shows that these efforts are not enough. True social responsibility means acting in ways that protecting people and the environment, not just meeting the minimum legal standards. So, although Bayer is making progress in responsible business practices, ongoing environmental controversy shows that its actions do not fully meet the broader expectations of corporate social responsibility. That's all from me. Thank you.
In 2018, after more reports showed the harmful effects of neonicotinoids on bees, the EU voted to ban 3 types of these pesticides. One of them was made by Bayer. Bayer believes this ban hurts agriculture, and it's a bad deal for Europe. However, scientists and institutions say it has a necessary step to protect our ecological foundation. So, who's right? First, let's look at this table. It clearly shows their differences. They disagree on science, the economy, farming practice, basic principles, and long-term values. These differences show they have 2 different ways of managing risk. Now, let's understand Bayer's position. First, let's talk about direct agriculture losses. For example, rapeseed yields have fallen by an average of 4%, and costs for farmers have increased. Second, they use their products are safe. They say their insecticides are thoroughly tested, and when used responsibly and correctly, do not threaten humans or the environment. Most importantly, they point to a big problem, the lack of good alternatives. They fear farmers might have to use older, possibly riskier pesticides, which could cause more environmental harm. However, The EU's decision is based on solid science and long-term thinking. Bees are considered one of the world's most important pollinators for food crops. Their ecological value is huge. Scientific evidence is clear. Their pesticides cause real harm to bees, not just killing them, but also affecting their ability to reproduce. The EU follows the precautionary principle. This means it's better to be safe than sorry. There is a threat of serious or irreversible damage. Action should be taken even before the science is 100% certain. In conclusion, although the ban brings some short-term challenges for agriculture, it is a necessary and responsible decision for a long-term perspective. It protects our environment and supports sustainable farming.
From this case, we have deeply realized that a company's social responsibility is not only about compliance with laws and regulations, but more importantly, it is about proactively preventing potential risks. They should not be content with merely not breaking the rules, but should be more proactivity in identifying and managing factors that may have an impact on society and the environment. This reminds us to take out insurance for enterprises in advance. First, social responsibility should be centered on science and public welfare. In business operations, in addition to complying with regulations, enterprises should also actively respond to scientific conclusions such as the harm of pesticides to the environment, and proactively adjust their own behaviors, even if there are no mandatory requirements by the law. A more cautious approach should be adopted in terms of product safety and environmental protection. The science and public welfare should truly be placed at the core of decision-making. Secondly, it is necessary to strike a balance between commercial interests and long-term risks. Short-term benefits may damage the brand reputation and malware the market trust, which is not conducive to the long-term development of the enterprise in the long run. Sustainability requires that organizations achieve a balance among the economic, the environment, and the society, and must adhere to the bottom line of ethical marketing. Thirdly, for enterprises to fulfill their social responsibility, external impetus is often necessary. In the face of regulation and public supervision, enterprises should actively adapt rather than resist. Such external pressure is actually an important opportunity for continuous improvement. Finally, it is crucial to emphasize the key role of transparent communication. Take ban as an example. Although they disclosed some test results, they failed to address the core controversy whether the product is harmful or not. This instead weakened public trust. It must be recognized that transparency, disclosure, and scientific evidence are of vital importance. Finally, it is crucial to emphasize the key role of transparent communication. Take ban as an example. Although they disclosed some tax rules, they failed to address the core controversy whether the product is harmful or not. This instead weakened public trust. It must be recognized that transparency, disclosure, and scientific evidence are of vital importance.
So, to sum it up, the obstruction caused by the banning of the pesticides act as a powerful reminder for businesses to restructure their sustainability compliance. CSR is not just about setting some rules just to put it in the book and set it aside. Rather, it is about adhering strictly to these laws because that is what the absolute right thing to do is. Businesses to be considered socially responsible, they need to make the public trust them and completely be transparent and hold accountability for all their actions. By resisting the government ruling, enterprises like Bayer put themselves in a bad light. Their actions highlight that it simply isn't enough to follow some regulations, but when a company produces a product, especially chemicals like Bayer does, they need to do extensive research and go in depth into the effects and after effects of it. Rather than combating what the government has said, they should once review their product and take responsibility and try to rectify their mistake. By doing so, not only will they be considered socially responsible, but also will gain public trust, which will in turn help them remain relevant in today's society. Thank you all for taking out your valuable time to watch our presentation. We hope that we were able to give you some insightful perspective into the global control and sustainability of today's world.